Let's preview the NBA Finals. Indiana was 9-14 on December 1st of this season. Since January 1st, we've talked about this ad nauseum. They're 45-17, including the playoffs. To me, bro, it's just insane that they're even in this position. But this is going to be a lot closer series with the Thunder than I think everybody is going to give it credit for, because these two teams have one massive thing in common. They do not turn the ball over at all. If you look at the stats starting at the calendar year of 2025, they are number one and number two in lowest turnover percentage. If you look at the playoff stats, they're still number one and number two in lowest turnover percentage. We know that OKC and Indiana thrives off points, off turnovers. I think that is the one thing that decides this series. Joel, I want to know your early lean for this. I want to know your prediction for this, and then I'll predict the series as well.
I'm going with OKC in five. I think that the Denver series spooked me when it came to OKC because it went all the way to seven. And then they ended up beating Minnesota in 5 games. The growth that I've seen from Chet, from J Dub in the conference finals, what they did, J Dub 22, 6 and 5 on 44% from three shooting. He shot efficiently from the field as well. He was clutch in those moments. Chet, what he's done on both sides of the ball, he is finishing everything around the rim, and his impact defensively, he is deterring shots around the rim. I don't think the Pacers are going to have an answer for Shea, J Dub, or Chet. And this growth and maturation that we've seen from OKC with Shea playing at an MVP level, which he's been doing that all season long consistently. My biggest questions were J Dub and Chet. Will they be inconsistent or will they be consistent performers? The conference finals, they were consistent performers. And I feel as if that Denver game seven was a graduation period for this young OKC team where everything was put together. J Dub had a phenomenal game. He really showed out, and he's becoming more of that Robin to Shea's Batman. And when I look at this series, I think it's going to be a great stylistic matchup. I think the Pacers are the best offense remaining that is equipped to handle OKC's defense. But with all that being said, Indiana's defense has not been good this entire playoffs. It's been all right. I don't think it's been anything special. They have allowed big scoring nights and number one options, whether that's Giannis, Donovan Mitchell, or Jalen Brunson. And now they're going up against the MVP. I don't see any world where Shea doesn't get his own, doesn't get his shots up and scores 30 plus in this series efficiently. And then who's going to be the other defender on J Dub? Who's going to guard Chet? And these defenders, I mean, yeah, the Pacers turned the ball over at a very low amount, but they played the Bucks defense, which has been a bad defense. They played the Cavs defense, which they had no perimeter defenders. They played the Knicks,
Stop.
which
You
they
can't just gloss over Cleveland's defense. That was one of the best defenses in the league all year long.
since January 1st they were 15th in defensive rating, and you had Garland out there on a hobbled ankle, and Mitchell,
Defensive
who's a
player of the
smaller
year was out
guard.
there. Defensive player of the year was out there, bro.
Evan Mobley, yeah, he's a great defender, but overall that defense collapsed in the second half of the year. That's not OKC. New York, they have two liabilities on
Right.
defense with Brunson and Cat. With OKC, the amount of bodies they could throw at Indiana, a team that thrives off of mismatch hunting, there is not a mismatch that you can hunt on OKC. And I think that's going to be the biggest hurdle for them. But I won't put anything past Rick Carlisle
Mm.
because his offensive plays and his system is one of one, and he's able to design players open. So if the Pacers can maintain their hot shooting, I think they have a puncher's chance. But I think what this season ultimately is one of the best guard seasons in the history of the NBA, with Shea being an MVP, a first teamer, an all star, a conference finals MVP, and capping it off with a finals MVP, an NBA championship, and cementing himself as the greatest OKC Thunder ever after this season.
Look, I'm not going to sit here and argue that the Thunder aren't going to win this series, but I am going to argue that it's not going to be 5 games. I agree. The Thunder did have a graduation in that game seven of the Denver series, but I did watch OKC struggle to score at points in that series. I'm not saying Indiana has some defensive stalwart defense, but Denver did not have some defensive stalwart defense either. I think where OKC is going to get in trouble in pockets of this series is trying to keep up with the Indiana Pacers offense. The Thunder are going to play the exact same stylistic fight that the Pacers want to play. And I think that is more than enough to steal 2 games in this series. OKC has had the only real home court advantage in the entire playoffs. You look at Madison Square Garden, for whatever reason, the Knicks haven't been able to feed off that crowd, but the Thunder have been able to feed off their crowd. They've lost 1 game there all season, which is why I'm picking them in 6 games. But the Pacers are in the role that they continue to thrive in. That is the underdog role. They've been picked against, and now probably 3 straight series, including the NBA Finals. And I think they respond to that. The answer for Shea is a completely fair argument. I don't think Aaron Nesmith is going to be able to stop Shea. I'm not arguing that whatsoever, but we have seen Jalen Brunson struggle in parts of this series, especially in the last few games of this series. I think Aaron Nesmith, if he can get into non-foul trouble and just defend Shea straight up, is going to be enough to win 2 games in this series.
That's a valid point. I think Aaron Nesmith plays with a lot of heart, and it just depends on what the referees are allowing, what they're not.
Mm.
If they're allowing Shea to get these touch fouls and they're allowing him to get these foul calls that the internet has been complaining about, then Nesmith will get into foul trouble early. But I think the NBA Finals will be officiated much more physically, and Shea, for all the knock that he gets on the foul stuff, I think Shea plays through contact exceptionally well,
Yes.
and he doesn't need any of that stuff to dominate. There are plenty of times where he actually does get fouled and he still gets those and ones because he's just that strong at the catch point when he shoots the ball towards that mid-range area when he's finishing around the basket. So I think that OKC should handle business. I think the Minnesota series pretty much convinced me that this is a team that is steamrolling. And I think they're going to win game 1. I think they're going to win game 2. I think the Pacers take game 3. And then I think OKC proceeds to win the next 2. And that's the series.
I think the one thing the Pacers are not going to do is do what the Minnesota Timberwolves did in game 5. They're never going to lay down. No lead is safe with them. That's why I think it extends to 6. But let's just say we both agree that the Thunder are going to win.